Hello my darlings, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Miranda and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. So I want to begin by saying Happy New Year and Happy 2026. I can't wait to see what this year brings. So today's video is going to be about Celtic Venusian energy and adding some Celtic Venusian energy to your life and to the life that you live, your lifestyle, what have you. So it's going to be a fun topic. But before I get into that, I do want to give my disclaimers at the beginning of the video, my little updates. Firstly, a reminder that other than running this YouTube channel, I am also a priestess running my business, White Rose of Avalon, which is found on whiteroseofavalon.life, my website. I post a daily blog on there, which is completely free. You can read it whenever you'd like, just like these videos, totally free. But I also do sell metaphysical services in the forms of tarot readings. I do channeled readings, and I do mentoring sessions. And I also have classes. Right now, I have my class, The Melostine Mysteries, that'll be opening for its second year for enrollment on Friday, March 13th. And this coming summer, I'm also working on a class called Lessons from Celtic Mermaids, which will be a short class, only 7 weeks long, and more info will come up about that as the time gets nearer. And I also have Patreon, Avalon Euros Fairy Mysteries, and it's a fairy mystery community, as you might determine by that name. So you get exclusive blog posts, you get meditations. My top 2 tiers get tarot readings at the full moon, every full moon. And I also have a shop page on there where you could purchase Celtic Venus journal prompts. If you really like the stuff I'm talking about in this video, maybe you'll be interested in that. All that stuff's already linked down below. And other than that, I also, White Rose of Avalon, that is, has a collaboration with the jewelry brand Otter Spirit, and I'll link the video discussing that up in the cards. So yeah, lots of great stuff, very fun. Oh, and actually beginning in March, I have my first ever book club starting on Patreon. If you are interested in rereading or reading for the first time the Practical Magic book series before the second film comes out, that is what we'll be doing. We'll be reading in publication order. So we'll read Practical Magic in March, we'll read Rules of Magic in April, we'll read Magic Lessons in May, and we will read Book of Magic in June. So yeah, that'll be available to all 3 of my tiers. So if you want to join at one of those tiers, even for just those 4 months, I would love to have you so we could talk about practical magic. All right, now into the topic of the video. So the Celtic Venusian lifestyle is very much in line with what I call the fairy lifestyle. I've talked about that quite a lot. It's embracing the energy of Venus, of the planet Venus, in a more Celtic way. So looking to the stories of the fairy queens, the fairy women, goddesses in Celtic lore that align with the Venusian energy to inspire us in our lives, because we could do that. That's the fun thing about living in a very magical sphere and walking a very spiritual path, is that we can take direct inspiration from folklore, legends, fairy lore, fairy tales to infuse our life with a little bit more joy, a little bit more whimsy, and a little bit more love, because obviously Venus is the planet of love. So what are some things to keep in mind? Well, keep in mind what exactly of the Celtic Venus energy you want to embody, what you want to bring into your life. Are you looking to embody the Celtic Venus energy to be a bit more seductive and maybe spice up your romantic life with your partner? Do you want to embody the Celtic Venusian energy to feel better about yourself, to look in the mirror and say, oh, I like what I see, or oh, I feel good about myself? Or do you want to do it to just embody self-love and to learn to give yourself a break? It's very hard in the modern world often to give ourselves a break. So think about that and think about what Celtic Venusian fairy queen goddesses might be trying to make themselves known to you. If you do work with goddesses, you might want to develop a relationship with one of them, and they might help inspire you to imbue your life with a little bit of a more magical and enchanted energy, which certainly is the case for me. I do priestess to 5 Avalonian fairy queens. So Morgan Le Fay, Bodaiwith, Guinevere, Rhiannon, and Melusine. 4 of them are very obviously Celtic Venusian fairy queen goddesses. And even Morgan Le Fay also has a lot of that energy, especially when we look into her lover aspect, when we look into her story with Sir Avalon. It's definitely got that romantic and sexy edge that is very Venusian. So maybe working and building a relationship with a goddess is an amazing way to begin to embrace this, because her story can inspire you. You're not trying to be her necessarily, but you're inspired by her story. Maybe this inspires you to decorate your space in a certain way. Maybe you want to bring in imagery that are associated with these stories. Maybe you want to have your altar be this just very sacred Venusian place. Or maybe you just want to wear the pretty dress just because, or lounge around feeling good about yourself. Drink that glass of wine, have a piece of chocolate cake, do things that feel very decadent and that bring you pleasure, because pleasure is a key component of Venusian energy in general. These are all things to consider. So some archetypes that would definitely fit with the Celtic Venusian energy is obviously the Creatrix archetype, also called the Lover, the Enchantress, which I love that particular title for this archetype. And in Jean Shinoda Bolen's Goddesses in Every Woman archetype system, she'd be the Aphrodite archetype. She's very alchemical, she's magical, she's the artist and the muse rolled into one. So she's an archetype that is very Venusian in nature. So tapping into that archetype, trying to embody that archetype would be a great way. Thinking about tarot cards that would bring in this archetype, this archetypal energy as well, like the Empress. The Empress being a card directly aligned with Venus. Often in many decks, this symbol of the planet Venus, the circle with a little cross beneath it, is on that card for that reason. It's a very Venusian card. And anything that would embody alchemical goddess energy, because alchemy is all about union and fusion, which is very Venusian in its own right. I also have noted here the Lover's card. The Lover's card is a very alchemical card, literally in my interpretation of the card, representing the alchemical marriage. It is one thing that that card could absolutely represent, the balance of the masculine and the feminine. So the Venus, you're embodying the feminine if you're embodying that Venusian energy. And with that, there's this attraction to those masculine forces. And how does the Venusian energy within you play with the energy of those other more masculine forces? And that's really something interesting to think about, journal about perhaps. And I do have listed some of my favorite Celtic Venusian stories to read if you do want to be inspired by the folklore, the legends, and the myth. So we have the stories, of course, Lancelot and Guinevere. Blodeuwith's story, especially with Granu Pebir, who is her lover that she chose for herself. Rhiannon and her husband Push, not necessarily a happy story, obviously, but he did not set her aside, which is a very interesting aspect. And Rhiannon very much can teach us about Celtic Venusian energy as enduring trials, as the Celtic Venusian queen energy of keeping your head held high, even during times of strife in your life. So it's important to study her story, especially if you work with her as a goddess that you are devoted to, as a goddess you priestess to. We should know the stories of the goddesses we work with. And of course, Raymond and Melusine. Melusine being, of course, a goddess I teach an entire 7-month-long class about, and I am very devoted to her, obviously. Her story with her husband is very beautiful and romantic, but does fall into the trappings of classic fairy lore, where he betrays that promise, that compact between the fae, queen, and the human, as is pretty much always the case, and she has to leave him. It ends in tragedy, but the love is genuinely there, and she doesn't stop loving him just because she has to leave him. So there's so many layers and so many beautiful things you could truly get from delving into that story, learning more about her. And in the Melusine Mysteries, I teach about the 7 aspects of Melusine. And one of them is, of course, the creatrix, because she is very much a Celtic Venusian figure. She very much has a creatrix aspect. And as we go through her 7 aspects, you're not only learning about that aspect in relation to Melusine and about working with that aspect of Melusine, but also about that archetype. And you can choose to work with that archetype in your own life, trying to embrace that archetype and call forth the energy of that archetype in your life. So this whole like goddess work and archetype work can really be intertwined. And I love to intertwine it. And the final story, and probably one of my favorite Celtic Venusian tales ever, is Tristan and Isolde. Isolde is absolutely a Celtic Venusian fairy queen. She is an absolutely fascinating figure. I love that she has a healer aspect to her, because that brings in the nurturing energy of the Celtic Venusian fairy queen. Because remember, Venus is still a motherly energy in many ways, because she is the creatrix, because she is very much so a sexual being. Children do come forth, and so there is a nurturing aspect, and having Isolde as a healer is a very potent way to represent that. But ultimately, it's the love story that matters the most with Isolde, and her relationship with Tristan, her relationship with Mark, whom she was forced to marry. All of that is just, it's peak Celtic Venusian energy. And yes, it's very similar to Lancelot and Guinevere's story and the love triangle with Arthur. They're in many ways mirror images of the other, but there are specific flavors to Tristan and Isolde's tale that set it apart. And yeah, it makes it really an interesting tale. I actually did a few months ago an entire, almost hour-long video digging into all these different aspects of Tristan and Isolde's tale, which I can link below if you're interested in hearing me talk about Tristan and Isolde for an entire hour. And then, okay, so what are some other ways to really look within and find a connection to Celtic Venusian energy? I mentioned pleasure, doing things that bring you pleasure. This could also just be romanticizing life on a daily basis. Like I said, dressing nicely for you, not to impress anyone else, but because it makes you feel good. Wearing your favorite perfume, not because it's a special occasion, but because you enjoy it. journaling in the beautiful journals and notebooks you have instead of saving them for some future potential. Oh, when life gets better, I'll journal in these. I don't want to ruin them. They're journals. They're meant to be used. So write in the beautiful journal. You know, brew yourself a teapot full of tea and drink it out of a beautiful teacup, which is a favorite thing of mine to do. It really feels so magical to do that. It's simple, but it's magical. And let me think. What are some of my other favorites? Simple ways. I mentioned eating my favorite sweets and lounging around in very comfortable but very pretty like pajamas or nightgowns. Anything that feels a little extra elegant. Makes you feel good about yourself. Being willing to take the time to journal, to meditate, to do yoga, to dance. Dancing is prime Celtic Venusian energy. Just dance and enjoy yourself. And really learning not to judge yourself so harshly, because I think we all can get into that chasm of judgment and I'm not good enough for some reason. You are, and learning to work through that possibly. Let's see. And currently I've also been writing a new series called the Incarnated Mermaid Diaries, and that's been very much tapping into Celtic Venusian energy for me, because I'm sharing information and bits of my own experience with my soul origins and that journey. So that's a series that's on my blog. Again, my website's always linked down below. And I've also been reading a lot and writing a lot about the Well Maidens and the Grail Maidens, especially the Grail Maidens. This past winter, I've been really deepening into that story. And Elaine of Corbinac is, again, another figure that very much would fit with this Celtic Venusian, almost priestess energy. And I actually did a video on her as well, talking about the possibilities of interpreting that story as her as a sacred sexual priestess of the goddess, as opposed to just the overly Christianized version we're normally exposed to. Yeah. And you could also look at your birth chart. I have been studying sidereal and Vedic astrology for the past year, and there's so much knowledge to be found in your birth charts. Definitely. I've found so much stuff that resonates. And in fact, in Vedic astrology, my chart is ruled by Venus. Learning that was this kind of light bulb moment of course, my chart would be ruled by Venus. So yeah, this has been kind of a free flow video, sharing all of these different thoughts related to the Celtic Venus and embracing Celtic Venusian energy in your life. I do hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too all over the place, but I just wanted to kind of freely discuss this. I do have some notes, but I didn't want it to be super structured because, again, embracing life as it is and not being hard on yourself, not being overly critical is a major boon when you're trying to embrace Celtic Venusian energy. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed. Again, I will link videos and blog posts down in the description box for you to enjoy a little bit more. And yeah, I will see you in the next video.